Welcome everybody, it is episode 22 of There's Treasure Inside Edition, and I am joined once again by the management. How are you doing today?
Very sunburnt after the Memorial Day weekend, but I am in bright spirits this evening. What about you, Chaz? How was your holiday weekend?
Well, I am from Australia and I would be disowned from the whole country if I didn't wear my sunscreen. They will ironically burn you at the stake if you don't wear sunscreen outside. So I did go outside today, wore my sunscreen. I will not be burnt today. That is the number one thing you have to do as an
Well, that
Australian.
is because, as all my Australian friends like to tell me, America is responsible for burning the hole in the ozone that is over Australia.
Okay, I do not take that point of view. So I'm a little more American friendly, if that helps. But we have a big episode this week, so enough of the pleasantries. We've got to get down to it because we have a guest today, Bruce, who contacted me, and he actually has two solves he wanted to go through for two of the chapters of this Treasure Inside Edition. So I'm not sure we'll be able to squeeze it in, but we're going to have to get talking to him pretty soon.
Yes, Bruce on the ground, which I love the play on words.
Yes, I did not get the play on words till much, much later, so it takes a little while for me to get that Bruce on the ground, boots on the ground. But first, I do want to get some treasure hunt token stuff out of the way. So I actually didn't make some treasure hunts last week. I ran out of time, but I wanted to go through one of the treasure hunts that was put up for episode 20. So the episode 20 hunt. Now, AI is making some very freaky images. If you haven't figured out these are AI images by now, you will with this one, because this is a house made of bananas with a bird of paradise plant coming out of it. It looks very strange. The solve for this one I wanted to run through for everyone. So the solve for this was actually the banana house, funny enough. Bananahouse.pt is the website. And if you scroll down far enough, you'll get to a photo with a bird of paradise plant, and right next to it, it says the words work and travel. And on the treasure map that we had there for episode 20 treasure hunt, there was some little dashes there, 4 letters long, 3 letters long, 6 letters long. So that was work and travel. That was the solution for those who couldn't get it for the episode 20 hunt. Okay, so for those of you who have not done these hunts yet, they're very fun, mostly very easy. Go ahead, we'll send a link in the chat for a treasure hunt. Let's use the code trousers again for this week since I didn't use it last week. Go ahead and do some of these hunts, check them out. And if you want to support the show, please buy some treasure hunt tokens. We've got a video on our YouTube channel on how to do that, and you can get access to higher level treasure hunts as well. So you can get your money back for however many treasure hunts you wish to buy. Does that all make sense? You're my non-engineering person to make sure that what I say makes sense.
Facts, 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 facts. Today, you are just nailing it out.
Okay, management, is there anything else you want to do before we go speak to Bruce?
Nope. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's bring Bruce in now. Bruce, how are you doing?
Doing great, Chaz. Thanks so much for having me on the pod today. I'm really excited.
No, we're really excited to have you on. Not just because we would like to speak to you and you sound like an interesting guy, but you're going to cover, I believe, 2 boxes for us today. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see how. I'm debating on how far into my solves I want to give you. I feel pretty good about both of them. So, but we'll definitely talk about both of them and my boots on the ground experiences with both of those.
Sure. Well, we'll try and make you comfortable. We'll get some alcohol out or something. So
Shots!
but the other thing was that we really don't like getting into the Pokemon box ourselves. So anytime we can outsource that to someone else, that's a really big opportunity. And so the 2 boxes that you've been looking into have been the Pokemon box and the Forrest Fenn box, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so wanted to start from the very beginning. Who are you? Who are you? And so how did you get involved with this treasure inside?
No, good question. I'm a Air Force retiree, living in Colorado Springs, and I guess I'll backtrack as far back to I don't know if well, you're not old enough to remember the Masquerade book back. It was like 1991, the first ever kind of armchair treasure hunt. I was only like 13 at the time, but I was enamored with it. And just you didn't have the internet back then, but just became enamored with it and learned everything I could about it over the years. And one thing about it is it's a much simpler solve than a lot of people wanted to build it to by looking at the pictures, things like that. So I'm kind of taking that with me. Always just been fascinated with that. But that was a treasure hunt where the prize was in England. I was only, a kid at the time, so I couldn't really actively participate. So fast forward to now, my sister sends me a link to this treasure hunt. She knew how much I enjoyed the Masquerade one, and I started looking into this one. And actually, when the Forrest Fenn one came out, I read through it and I was still on active duty in the Air Force, but I read through it and I was like, I have no clue where to start. I have no clue what to do with this. And I just pushed it aside. So when my sister told me about this book, I got it. And then, read about the first part being the lion's share. And I'm like, okay, wait, there's smaller ones I can fast forward this. So I started reading the Forrest Fenn one. And, obviously the first thing I locked into was place where once was Brown with a capital B. I was like, okay, there's a good place to start. So that kind of got me hooked. And within 15 minutes or so, I'm telling my wife, I go, I think I might know where this is, right? I didn't
That's so
obviously,
cool.
but it was a kind of coincidence that you had Froggy on your show about that time, because that's where my first solve took me to Gates of Lador, where he was looking. So
That might be onto something then, because there were several people that had the Warm Waters Halt at 9 Mile Hole, and they all came there, independently. So the fact that you and Froggy have both landed on the gates of Lador, that could be something.
I thought it was 3 trips there. It's not. Yeah, okay, I'm going to probably give you more than I probably should today, but because I love my solve. I'm pretty confident about it. Here's one thing I've kind of learned about folks out there is that all the people that bought the book, most people are just armchair. They're enjoying it. They like to try to figure it
That's
out.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I don't know what percent actually go boots on the ground. What, 5% of the people who bought the book, maybe, I'm not sure. And also people are in love with their own solve. I've learned this. I get very excited about it. I like to talk to people about it and share ideas. Most often they start kicking back their solves and what they see and what they're doing. I'm like, okay, you're really not interested in what I have to say. So that's fine. That keeps you out of my solve location, I guess. But
That's funny though, because it's interesting when I was thinking about how you were talking about the treasure hunt you were doing when you were a child. You had this long career where you were working. Now you're back retired. You're looking for treasures again, just like you were when you were a kid. And I'm getting the impression that you have this like childlike wonder of the treasure hunts. And I would like to know, was that present through that whole working career, or has it kind of been reignited now that you've been retired again?
that's a fantastic question because it speaks to some things that my wife and I talk about with this, and it's basically it's an inner child thing, right? So it's a thing where like 12-year-old Bruce, when he got the Masquerade book, he couldn't really do much about it, but kind of look at the book and hope for good ideas and all that. But now, 57-year-old Bruce is able to, he's able to get into it and really participate. I think that for me is the thing that kind of speaks to that inner child of mine. It's like, wow, like I actually get to go out and hunt for hidden treasure and figure out the clues and actually, and I'll be honest, I like feel like you actually have a real shot at finding some of these things. So it's a cool thing. I think during my career, I have 2 kids, raising kids, all the stuff, Air Force career. I didn't really get to indulge in all that stuff. And now I'm retired. Yeah, it's John has given me the opportunity to kind of relive that real time and to actually participate. So and I'm always thankful of that. Like I know my odds of finding a box are, it's infinitesimal probably with everybody out there looking for it. But I just love having the opportunity. And John, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry that I Instagram DM you almost on a daily basis, my solve information and what I'm doing. It's almost like I live blog to John just because I'm like, I'm curious that what he would want to know about what people were looking at and their solves and things like that. And John's the one guy in the world I can actually share all my ideas with and not worry about him stealing the treasure if I'm on the right path.
That makes sense, but you want him to know that if you do find it, you were the first one to send him the information, right, on this solve and
I think there's a part of that, Chaz, too, as well as it would be fantastic to be able to find a box, but I think part of it would be like if I'm to just be right, to be correct in my solve, to have kind of lined it out the way John had envisioned, and kind of be the first to maybe crack the code. I think that's probably why I send everything to John and hope that he's not like got me blocked by now or anything like that. So
So you went through the book. Did you read the book from cover to cover first, or did you go through some smaller boxes first?
yeah, I jumped right to the Forrest Fenn box because being in Colorado, and knowing that that was based on the Forrest Fenn and the four states here in the Rocky Mountain region. That's where I started. I was like, okay, well, it's only 8 pages long versus 200. Let's start there. And yeah, then like I said, I got the Brown piece. I just started Googling
Molly Brown.
Rocky. No,
Was it Molly Brown?
no, no, Rocky Mountain explorers named Brown, right? And so what I end up with was Baptiste Brown, and that's where the area of Browns Park, Browns Hole, is on kind of northwestern Colorado. So that's where I started, and then
Is
just
there a lot of Browns?
what's that?
Did you come across a lot of Browns that explored Colorado?
I just that was the one I started with, and I found enough stuff to kind of get me going. That's what kind of got me to Gates of Lodore. So I got there and I started looking at the Green River, and I see, and the Froggy covered this. The Cold Springs Mountain flows into the Green River. Now, here's the thing that I like with John being a musician, and this is going to be, I don't know, controversial is the wrong word, but ties into Joy's Serenade a little bit, because Green River in the first, so there's a song by Creedence Clearwater Revival called Green River.
I'm familiar with it.
Well, the first line of it is "Take me back down where cool waters flow."
Oh, right.
So that's the first line of the song, which to me is like a double confirmer of Green River. And then also with the first verse of Joy's Serenade, it talks about you may find a song to follow, you may find music in a
Oh,
poem, and that's and again, everybody
I
has
like that.
their thoughts. Like, Joyce Serenade says you may find music in a poem. There's only one poem in that book that means anything, and that's the Forrest Fenn poem. And so I'm just saying, like, musician, a song to follow, Green
I
River.
like that.
Oh, yeah, I like it too. So
Wait, so is this going towards the broken solve or the one you think's correct?
the Gates of Lodore, it's actually just a little further down the Green River.
Mm, okay, so what process did you use with this? You started by looking at Brown, so one part of the poem there, and started researching Brown and where a researcher of Brown looked into northwestern Colorado, right? Or Colorado in general. But what was your process for doing this? Were you going through line by line in the poem and trying to link things up from that one piece? Or were you sending out different tendrils of clues from different parts of the poem and just seeing what stuck?
Oh, good question. Well, I mean, immediately, if you look at a map and you see Browns Park and you see the Green River, it flows through Canyon of Lodore. So you get the canyon tie. Though it flows through the canyon round, I believe is the line.
Yeah. Most rivers would be associated with not most rivers, but a lot of rivers are probably associated with a canyon, right?
Uh, I don't know. I don't.
I was thinking in Colorado or Arizona or
And yeah,
all those
probably in the
areas.
Rockies. Yeah, yeah. I would say a lot of that would be fair. Another
Okay.
thing was I think I noticed that, and then and again on Discord, somebody made the comment about Green River and Creedence Clearwater Revival and that lyric, and I was like, oh, okay, so that was kind of like a double confirmer there, and maybe we're on the right track, and then we had the Gates of Lodore campground is right by the Gates of Lodore, so that was to me that was something that looked good, and another clue that I feel is good is like when you talk about the compass points towards the home of Point and Tree and Seeing Eye. Someone made the point, and it may have even been Froggy. I don't know who. Somebody on Discord, but it talked about the that being the National Parks Service
Yes.
logo, right? So I
Yes.
was like, oh, there's the Gates of Lodore Trail, which is managed by the NPS. So, that all kind of started to tie in. That was enough for me to go, okay, we're running off to Gates of Lodore. So I drug my wife out there, and we searched out there. It's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it really is.
So did you do that before Froggy announced this stuff about Gates of the Door?
My thing was when I had Gates of Lodore kind of identified, I Googled Gates, like I was looking on Discord to see if anybody else, and Froggy was the only one that was popping up with Gates of Lodore. And I was like, well, that's good, I guess. And then I heard him on a podcast, maybe your podcast, but he said he didn't have any plans on going out to Colorado. I was like, okay, cool. I've got a little bit of time here to do this.
I kind of panic if I see that I've got something in my mind and I see someone else has already talked about it. I think, oh no, someone else is onto it. I better get moving really fast now. So someone's
Not me.
what's that?
Not me. When somebody else is like, to me, if I think of something and then I see somebody else has also thought of it, it means I'm processing the information that John Collins Black has given us in the way it's meant to be processed because somebody else came to that same conclusion. So that is more of a confirmation for me that I'm headed down the right path. Now, do I think that me and that person are gonna interpret everything the same way all the way down to where the treasure is located? No way. But those
Mm.
little snippets kind of make me go, "Aha, somebody else landed on that too. There's something to it."
I guess I'm more prone to panic. You're more of an optimist, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
but I get your
So what
point, Chaz. Like, I mean, you throw a solve out there, and you're afraid that someone's going to glom onto your idea and run out there. Well, I definitely, I think initially that was my thought. Again, like it takes a lot of effort to just get up and go boots on the ground, and especially like in a place where I'm like, my location's out at Dinosaur National Monument, Gates of Lodore. Like, it's a 7 hour drive from Colorado Springs, and there's nothing out there. You have to really be determined. So that's kind of the thing too. Like people aren't gonna, I don't think for the most part, people are gonna just uproot themselves on your idea without really investigating. Maybe, I don't know. I've kind of taken that approach to it and shared a lot of my solves online in the Discord group.
So I was looking through, I've got my book right now looking through the Forrest Fenn box, and because I haven't reviewed it for a little bit, I wanted to ask you before we go into some of the clues in a little more detail, I wanted to ask you that there's the poem at the end of the chapter, but there's quite a few pages before you even get to the poem. So I wanted to ask you how much of your solve is based on the poem versus the words and chapters leading up to the poem.
No, that's a good question. I would say that pretty much the whole solve is out of the poem, but there are, in my mind, confirmers in the story if you know what you're looking for. Like, for example, the Gates of Lodore, the Echo Park campground where I'm looking, is all in a place called Dinosaur National Monument. Well, John mentions, wishing that he would have been a paleontologist, was
Oh, he does. Oh,
study of
great.
dinosaurs. There's also him talking about, when he first thought about looking for treasure and being a sea captain on a vessel cutting through the sea at Echo Park. There's a big rock called Steamboat Rock, and it looks like a big sail. Like again, it's pretty. You could take it or leave it. Like it's not really a clue, but it could be maybe a confirmer of something like that. So
Okay.
he also makes two references to Google, which I think are really important, and I'm not sure how much I want to share that because he mentions Google. He doesn't need to say it. He says when he talks about wanting to be a treasure hunter, he says, "I wasn't sure what to do, so a voice from the heavens said Google." But what really, if you're like, I want to search on how to be a treasure hunter, I just search online. Like you could have said that really cleanly and quickly without Google being highlighted in quotation marks. So
I think there's a lot of that though, where he says things that you think you could have said that in a much simpler way. There must be something to a clue there. Like sometimes they just pop out of the page, right? You're like I talk about the past and future box a lot, and there's an entire paragraph which is like you can tell 3 or 4 clues in that one sentence because no one would talk like that.
is it the one about his grandparents?
There's that one. Yeah, I think it's that one.
I think that's a reference to Frogger.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go on to past and future box. We were talking about Forrest Fenn box. Okay, so it sounded like though you anchored yourself with Brown in there and kind of worked around there. Did you want to speak about some of the other particulars of how it got you towards that Echo Park campground?
Yeah, absolutely. I can get you there. Again, Campers Blaze is a key phrase on there. That's what got me to the Gates of Lador campground. You look at that as a trail used by campers is kind of that. So when I got out of the Gates of Lador, and then if I would have just zoomed out a little bit, I would have saw this Echo Park campground first, and then, or not, maybe not first, but I would have checked it out. I love Gates of Lador just because of the whole like Lord of the Rings feel to it, the name, and it's very majestic and all that. I thought he might like that. But
Mm.
anyway, going through, the Gates of Lador, the Canyon of Lador is big for on rapids. So take in the highs and lows. That was I took that as rapids.
I think that's what Froggy said as well. The
Yeah,
highs and
I mean,
lows
yeah,
that
that
come
I
from
mean that makes a ton of sense.
Ding, ding, ding.
Here's where Gates of the Door gets tripped up. It's with the Warm Waters Halt, and I'm gonna give you my Warm Waters Halt against my better judgment here, but I'll do it anyway. You ready?
Yes.
So, okay, like I talked about with the Green River coming down, it's fed by Cold Springs Mountain. Okay, so you have
Yes.
Green River, Cold Springs. Now on the other side of the canyon, you have the Yampa River, which is fed by Warm Springs Cliff.
Mm.
So
Wow.
now I have Cold Springs feeding in the Green River. I have Warm Springs feeding into the Yampa. They meet at the confluence in down at the Echo Park campground, and that's where the Yampa River stops and the Green River continues. So warm water
Yes.
halts.
Yes, that makes sense to me.
So
That is
that's
correct.
to me, that was like, cold, warm. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was like, so there you go. Anybody, that's one of my biggest ones for that.
That's great. We spoke last week about how there's a seat referenced here, right? And
Yep.
the best we've gotten so far is referencing a toilet seat. That's as
I,
far as we've gotten.
I'll give you a better one. Okay, is that this is what I like about this solve is that and back to like the importance of boots on the ground. Like you're not gonna know about the Thinker Stone, in my opinion. I'll show you a picture of it, and you wouldn't know unless you went boots on the ground because you can't see it from.
Oh, so we are on toilet seat.
No, we're not.
Okay.
I was like, if this is the third toilet seat
No,
reference, we are on to something.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, so it does say that a thinker stone is all you need. White mark shows upon the seat. You literally, when you're walking down the path, and the name of the path is called the Confluence Trail down at Echo Park. That's where I run it. You literally are walking on the path, and it just smacks you in the face. It's right there, and yeah, you can't miss it. So, but you can see that white mark on there
On the side.
on the side. Yeah,
Yeah.
so, and that's so a thinker stone. I take that as I don't know if anybody's discussed that before, like the Rodin statue of the guy on the sitting on the rock with the thinker, right?
That is pretty much the consensus is everybody's going for Rodin.
Right. So, and that's where, yeah, and that one, it's just right there when you're walking on the trail, and it just says just beyond the Camper's Blaze is you'll find the Thinker Stone is all you need, right? So it's facing the trail. As you're walking on the trail, it's like right there, and the white mark is right there, and so but you can't see it on Google or Google Earth or Google Maps.
Well, we can post a link or put it on our website for the photo that you're speaking about, so our viewers will know what you're speaking about.
No, you can. I mean, because you have to find it. I've had people that have searched that area and showed them a picture, and they're like, "We haven't seen that before." Again, and then the other thing is too is like even if you know where the Thinker Stone is and it's in Echo Park, you are still looking for a needle in a million haystacks. I've been down there 8 times looking for this thing, and it's a horrible place to it's a 12-mile dirt road that you have to get down. It's horrible. I mean, it's just no fun to get down there. So, but every time I go, I built, the first time I found the Thinker Stone, and the second time I figured out the clue about the home of the point and tree and seeing eye and things like that. So, yeah. So even if you know that that's where I think it is, like, good luck. I've been down there. I spent 5 hours. I spent Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday down there last week, about 5 hours each, and no luck.
Well, I'm assuming though that you have some extra things to know where to look for in Echo Park, or have you told us your entire soul for this?
I have some more.
Okay, that you're keeping to yourself, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that I'm saving. Yeah, so
That makes sense. So I would love to know though, the very first line, we spoke about this last week, that it says, I cruise along a road I know. That one line. And we were speaking last week about how people are looking into John Collins Black's person, his past or whatever. But it seems very personable, that a road that I know that he says. So what do you make of that? Do you think it has anything to do with John Collins Black or having to know anything about John Collins Black?
I don't. I think it's just saying, John made it very clear that he searched for, 4 years for this, for the Forrest Fenn treasure. And I think it's just that I've searched somewhere, I parked along somewhere where I'd searched before for the Forrest Fenn treasure, because it's where I'd searched for heavy loads, or, and I tried or whatever. I think that's all that is. I think it's just confirmation that it's in one of the Forrest Fenn four states. Ben John's already, I think he's pretty much more or less confirmed that at this point.
Yes, I believe he has.
That's what I look at. I think this is John's revenge. I think John was not happy with the Forrest Fenn box solve, and I think he believes that this is where it should have
Should have
been.
been, yeah, right.
Yeah, I
That's
absolutely 100% believe that. So, because looking at it, I mean, the clues match up pretty well with this area for the Forrest Fenn box.
that was gonna be my next question, though. Have you gone back and looked at the Forest Fen poem and thought it pretty much is the same thing?
It's not what there is. I mean, but it talks about, the with the we're in the home of Brown. I mean, but he capitalized it. When you're capitalizing Brown for brown trout, I'm not. That's a rough one for me. I don't know about that, but there's some definite. I can see if John spent a lot of time in this place looking for it. I can definitely see why. Warm water salt, especially if you made the cold water warm water connection with Cold Springs, Warm Springs, with the confluence down there. I could definitely see that he probably spent a lot of time down there. Just my guess.
I think we're kind of on the opposite end of some of these things. You've obviously looked into some of these into a lot of detail, but some of when I read his writing, I assume that pretty much every word he's chosen on purpose and it has a clue behind it. So when you say, I think he's just referring to the fact that he looked at it before, it may well be that's correct. But I have this kind of paranoia to me that I think, oh, there must be something. I need to look into every single one of these words that it has meaning.
I don't disagree with you, Chaz. Because the more I looked into the solve, the more I was pulling out things that I was kind of glossing over, hand waving, as we would say, like, oh, I don't need to really know that. But I'm finding that almost every word does have a lot of meaning. So on one hand, I agree with you. Like, it would not surprise me if there was a deeper meaning to that than what I'm giving it. I'm not sure what else to do with that. I guess,
Yeah.
if I've put myself in where once was Brown, then do I really care where he parked his car? Not so much. If I'm, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of my logic on that, Chaz. I mean,
Yeah.
but there might be something in there that's key for the more specific solve, and more, when your boots on the ground. If you're missing this part, maybe I don't know,
Well,
but
I'm not saying, by the way, that that's a better approach to assume that every word has meaning, because you could get really bogged down. Like, I'm reading this first line, it says,
right.
"I cruise a lot," and I'm like, "Why doesn't he just say I drive along? Why is he saying cruise?" I'd be looking into the word cruise for, like, 10 weeks, right? So, maybe trying to, like, take a higher level view of it is better, I don't know.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, cruising could refer to like you're cruising in a boat on a river that's next to a
Mm,
road.
cruising along a road, I know.
I mean, again, no one will know until someone pulls a box out of the ground, or not out of the ground, but out of wherever it's stashed. But no, I'm with you. I mean, we've tried to break things down into, big C clue and little C clues, and that's kind of, to us, that's more like a little C. But I mean, we just think it's he searched for Forrest's treasure, and that's him saying, this is your parameters, big to small, kind of, right? So I'm telling you that I searched somewhere for Forrest Fenn's treasure, and that's I parked along a road I know, so I'm limiting it to these 4 states.
Mm.
That's me. I
Yep.
don't discount anybody's solves and anybody's line of thinking on this
Mhm.
because we don't know what we don't know. So
And where is your wife in all of this? Does she help you out with the clues? You mentioned a "we" in there, so I thought maybe your wife was in on it. Chaz and I are still trying to get our people to like it.
My wife is extremely supportive of my expensive habit. She's great. She smiles and nods and hey, good job, baby, whatever you think, and all that. So she doesn't really, and she did actually go out to me the first time we went out to Gates Door, and was a real trooper about that. But I've actually her son is older. He's like 30, and I got him the book and got him engaged in it, and he and I went out to Echo Park last week and spent a couple days out. Yeah, it was really great. Like sharing the solve with the community has been it's an interesting dynamic, right? You don't want to give out too much sometimes, but sometimes I get excited. I can't help myself, and that's what my wife says. Like someone's going to steal the box because you're telling them too much. But one thing that's been really cool about the community is that the folks that are just kind of armchair folks and they're just excited about it and curious about it, they actually, if they know I'm boots on the ground, I get a dozen messages from people saying, "Have you checked this out? Have you thought about this? Have you looked there?"
Oh, wow.
And to be
Yeah.
honest with you, we got one. We spent one day searching out there. We're kind of frustrated. We're back at the hotel, which is still like 2 hours away from this place. Is It's so far out, but we're debating on whether or not we're going to go out. And I get this message from somebody, and I go, "Oh," and it gives me a clue to something that I've been hand waving over. And it was more confirmation that we are in the right spot. It wasn't really more detailed about the exact location, but it did spur like, okay, I think we're still in the right place. And then it got a conversation, and then Taylor he came up with an idea, and we're like, let's go, and we took off. So yeah, so the community's been that's been a kind of maybe an unintended thing. I didn't expect people to be so helpful, and I appreciate it because it's definitely I've gotten some really good information that's helped refine my solves over this box and the Pokemon box. So I think people just want to be involved. They want to be a part of it. So and most people don't even like hey, I'll tell you if you promise me 50% or whatever. No, they just throw it out there and want to be a part. And yeah. So anyway, shout out to all my Discord friends out there that have been super helpful. I really appreciate all the support and all just the encouragement. Everybody's been so encouraging on that. So
We've spoken about this a few times that it seemed to come along at a really good time where people felt really divided, not just in the US, but all sorts of stuff going on in the world. And you would think as treasure hunters, it would be very cutthroat and, you think of pirates and that sort of thing. But it's been a really nice activity for people to do to feel like they're a part of something, to feel like they're doing something that's just fun, just the pure word fun, and there's nothing else. There's no undertones, overtones. Well, the management thinks there is, but I don't. But there's the intention being just a joy to do something that's fun with other people. And isn't that a great thing to
Well,
do?
one of us has to be wrong.
But I mean, did you get that sense too? It seems like you expected it to be a bit more cutthroat, and people are actually just having a great time together.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it took me a while to before I did my toe into the Discord stuff because you just don't know how you're going to be received and how how people are going to act. And I'm too old to be messing with people, trolls and haters and all this stuff. I'm like, I ain't got time for that, right? So but I found some really smart people who are excited about it and like to share and collaborate and kick ideas around and made some well, I don't know, say good friends. I mean, it's hard to say that you make good friends, but people that I trust to talk to and that I'll dump my solve on somebody that that I've never met in person, but I feel like I've formed a little bond there, a little kinship with them, and want to share some ideas with them. So no, it's been a good experience, and I think the number of people that are, way more people that are positive and upbeat and doing good things and sharing stuff and being supportive versus the people that are, there just to get their kicks and the crap on people's solves and I don't know, do make themselves feel better about themselves and all that, right?
Yeah,
So
that happens a lot
it
sometimes, but
does. Not
good to
yeah,
hear that it's minimized.
I
Um,
think so.
You spoke a little bit before about how you were a little frustrated and went home after one of the boots on the ground experiences. Do you mind speaking about any time, whether it was you looking theoretically for the solve in the book or going boots on the ground? What was one of the most times where you felt the most frustrated or the most low doing this?
Um, Gosh, most frustrated. Probably the first time I went out to Gates of Lodore because man, I knew that's where it is, right? If you've never been boots on the ground, the world is much bigger than it is on Google Maps, and I think that was probably the biggest lesson. Like I was like, oh, it should probably be right here, or whatever, and I'll just go pick it up, and everything will be good, right? So, I think the first time is always kind of the hardest time because you are if you've got what you feel like is a good solve, you're super excited, you're ready to go, you know you got the solution down, and you get there and you realize, well, maybe I don't, and maybe that was probably the hardest, and so to be able to temper my expectations a little bit more, other future boots on the ground experiences, temper that a little bit and just enjoying the experience now more. I've seen some really amazing places in the country that I never would have went if it wasn't for this. So I'm thankful for that. And yeah, so but definitely the first time out, and I'll tell you, like John is the world's hide and seek champion, and we're playing the world's cruelest game of hide and seek,
Right.
and it's not because you don't know what you're looking for. I go out there and I have an old putter with me when I'm out hiking, and I'm just tapping rocks, right? And I bet I tapped on like 5,000 rocks this last trip, right? Because I don't know what I'm looking for. That's super frustrating. I'll tell you that.
What is the most exhilarated you felt? I'm assuming, what was it when you were looking through the poem and something clicked and you thought, "Oh my god, I have it," or was it when you were out boots on the grounds and you saw something and you thought, "I think it's right there."
Good. That's kind of hand in hand because so most times when I go boots on the ground for either one, like I was only at Gatesville Door twice and realized this isn't it. I'm missing some key things. I think going out to Alabama, sorry, my Alabama on the Pokemon, and going, yeah, my solve looks beautiful on paper, but this ain't it. So when you go to a place and things start adding up, like when I was at Echo Park and I walked right into the Thinker Stone. Like I walked and was head on with the Thinker Stone. I was like, oh, that was very exhilarating. That's like, okay, I think that's something.
With the white spot on it that you showed us?
Yeah, yeah. And there's also like when I had a realization of, and I'm going to give this away, and I think I've shared this online on the Discord. But so you have that line, and you have now the compass now points towards the home of the point and tree and seeing eye. Well, I always had like I thought this meant like that's the NPS trail, National Park Service trail there. Well, there's a ranger station at the trailhead, which serves as the home of the park ranger during the season. So literally the home of the National Park Service person is that. And then that was a big aha moment. And then knowing that I had 2 points on a map to draw a line, Thinkerstone to the ranger station, that gave me a search line and a parameter. And again, you don't know unless you're boots on the ground, you will not know what that line is, what the angle is, all that, right? So I do.
So you had your wife there to share the exhilaration, at
No,
least?
not that one. She was at the frustration one, at the first one, at the gates of the door.
Doesn't that kind of, like, bottle up a little bit if you're by yourself, you got this frustration, you're looking around thinking, "Oh, I think I've got something here." Like, doesn't it burst out of you?
It's funny because it's hard because where at Echo Park, there is no cell service. I mean, it is the canyon walls everywhere. There's nothing. And if you're out there and there's nobody out there, like it's just so remote and you're out there. And I remember the first time I thought had something there and I was, and I just was getting so frustrated, because I felt like I know the solve but I don't know what the thing looks like. And I'm kicking rocks and and it's a like I said, 12-mile drive on this crappy dirt road to get down there, and then another, hour and a half just to get to the closest town. So it's a commitment. And then to get so frustrated to go, I just don't feel like looking anymore, but feeling like it's still there, like you're right, like it's there. And I literally was walking out of there and I went, ah. and I out loud, I just yelled. Like I was like, the part of me that's like, look, Chaz, like I'm a golfer. I won't look for a lost golf ball for more than like 15 seconds. And here I am out kicking 5,000 rocks, and it's just not my personality.
What if the golf ball was made of gold, though?
But that would be different, I think. It's a good point. But I know what the golf ball looks like, management.
True, true. No, I want to just backtrack for a second because you touched on something that I find particularly interesting and is another one of those confirmations. One of my side theories is that John Collins Black, having been a Forrest Fenn hunter and been involved with the community, he kind of has like the ideas of the different people that were in the community and their different solves. And one of them that I heard specifically after Forrest Fenn, it was probably like in 21, 22 on the Missed Fortune podcast, which was the Apple podcast that covered the Forrest Fenn treasure. And I believe it came from there because I don't know where else I would have read about Forrest Fenn or heard about Forrest Fenn. But they talked about the ranger station, somebody having lived at the ranger station with their last name being Brown. So you're already looking into people and the explorers in the Rocky Mountains. You're already making the connection with the ranger station being a home. And now I'm wondering, is John Collins Black tying back into that theory that the ranger station was the home of Brown, and so he's now including it as a, waypoint in his hunt?
That makes a lot of sense to me. If that's, I don't know that much detail on the original Fenn hunt, but I think so. Again, I think this is John's revenge. I think he wants to point all the clues down there and go, see, this is where it should have been. Here's what all that stuff lines up, and
We call it the grudge. We in our very one of our very first episodes, we called it the
right. I
grudge.
remember, yeah, Max, I believe it mentions about
Yes,
that about the grudge.
Mysterious Max.
Yes.
yes.
No, I think there's a valid point there, management, on that. I think he tied as much as he could from Forrest's poem and maybe his experiences to this. I think that's a real valid point.
So I wanted to go back to the very beginning of our conversation when we were talking about this kind of journey of your life so far of being a child and looking at treasure hunting and then doing it again now. That middle period, which we skipped over pretty quick, that's where I am now. So I'm working, bringing up kids. Difficult for me to go boots on the ground. But in that time when you are in your career, would you have ever thought you'd be off searching for treasures in your environment? And would you have done it if you had time during that time? And what would your coworkers have thought in the military that you wanted to go search some treasure? Like, what were you thinking during that time period?
Yeah, I mean, all of it. Like you said, you're kind of in the middle of it, Chaz, and to me, it was making. I'm a poor white trash kid from Tennessee, right? And so I wanted to make sure my kids had a better life than I did, and I'm sure you feel the same way, or what. I don't know how your life was in Australia, or but
Mostly
um,
riding kangaroos.
oh, very good. So it, yeah, I wasn't. I mean, it wasn't a thought. There wasn't anything drawing me into like any kind of treasure hunting thing. Even now, when I talk to people about it, like they ask me, I tell people that what I'm treasure hunting, and you get a wide variety of responses from people, and a lot of people smirk and scoff, and you're like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I get it. It's an out there idea. It did get me out of a ticket at Dinosaur National Monument when I was speeding.
Oh, really?
I was
I want to hear this
I was
story.
driving out of there, and I was like, thinking about my solve and frustrated, and I was doing 68 to 45 on this. There was nobody out there on this road, and the guy stops me, and he's like, "What are you doing out here?" And I go, "Well, I'm treasure hunting." And he's like, "What?" And I start talking to him about it, and I end up just getting a verbal warning. I pulled the book out. I said, "I think you're sitting on $100,000 of treasure down there. If you want, could get the book and check it out." So
Yeah, he maybe headed the other direction and went to where you were
exactly,
looking. Right.
exactly. But you get a lot of side eye kind of stuff. People don't, I've shared the book with a lot of people. I've given the book to a few people. Um, I don't know. I'm sure when you tell people that you do a podcast about treasure hunt, they probably look at you a little side eyed sometimes too. I would imagine.
They should. But but down with normies, right? We don't want the normal people. We want the crazy people like us.
This is the only ride we got here in this life, and I'm all about like adventure and doing fun things and just enjoying the time. And this has been really soul filling for me. I just enjoy the fact that I get to throw myself into this, and I have such an amazing wife, and she's so supportive of my dalliances here with treasure hunting, and 5 times to Alabama and 5 times out to Dinosaur National Monument, and she always just smiles and good luck. I hope you find it, and I want the Fabergé frog. She says so.
Maybe I should have Mrs. Bruce on the podcast at some point.
Oh, she's a better guest. She's way more smart than me, and yeah, so and much better looking. So
Well, thanks for coming on, Bruce. I think it's been really great to talk to you. For me personally, it's very inspiring to see that you can continue to have that childhood inquisitiveness and curiosity and joy throughout your whole life, even well into retirement. So that's a great lesson to be taught to a lot of people, I think. So thanks for showing that part of you.
absolutely, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here and share. This is my passion right now. I That's all I think about is the treasure hunts and trying to find the boxes and how I'm going to convince my wife that I'm going to go fly to Alabama again for another 3 days. So,
And you ran like not a marathon, but you ran a race today, right? The Boulders to Boulder.
oh yeah, we ran the Boulder, the world's most, as they say, the world's most famous 10K run, and a lot of fun. Bands everywhere, and just a lot of fun. But yeah, it gets a little tougher the older you get. So.
Well, thanks for coming on after doing that. I'm sure you're exhausted, but we'd love to have you back on sometime to talk about the Pokemon box and do that work for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime. I've truly enjoyed this. It's great to get to actually see you face to face and chat with you and management and in this forum. Love the pod. Love what what you bring to the table, and love to talk to you about your BIP 39 theory and the past and future box at some point.
We will.
Uh-oh, you've got to take her.
I'll coach you what I know on that one.
I think you're onto something. So,
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Bruce. We'll speak to you soon.
all right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
What a nice guy. Bruce just seems so approachable and so open to talk about, well, kind of open to talk about his solves. He talks about enough and keeps enough to himself, which gives him that extra aura of mystique.
Yeah, well, I think he gives away more than I probably would have, but for the parts he gave away, now I want to know about the parts he hasn't given away that are even more juicier. But I agree, really love talking to Bruce. I really like his approach. Again, someone who's in a retirement that has this burst of enthusiasm and curiosity and energy. It's just very inspiring to know that you can keep that up through your whole life and make the most of your whole life, like Bruce said.
Yeah, he is definitely not letting that childlike spirit go, and I appreciate that. We all got to grow up, but it doesn't mean you can't have fun.
I think he would be John Collins Black approved, don't you think?
Oh yeah, stamped 100%.
Stamped by John Collins Black, having joy in his life. So I want to thank Bruce for coming on. It was great to have him on to talk through his theories. And now we have a lead on the Pokemon box. So you might have noticed then we cut it a bit short with Bruce because we were going so long and having so much fun about the Forrest Fenn box. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Pokemon box, but we should have Bruce back on to talk about the Pokemon box because we need all the help we can get on that one.
Yeah, it was definitely a short story long situation today, but I think having him back again is going to be super fun, and maybe he will have had a chance to go boots on the ground again before he comes back.
Right. Well, it's been pretty long this week, but I would like to thank you all for listening, giving us your time and attention, the most precious resource you have. Thanks for joining us and listening to us talk, and I hope you all have a great week this week.
Yes, everyone, thanks again for listening, and we will talk to you next week.